So the letter to the Philippians, chapter 2, and I picked this one, verse 5. Let the same mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus. Now I gather that this chapter of the Bible is Judith's favourite in all the scriptures. And I've got to say, good choice. Good choice. These are great words for today. They are wonderful words for a minister being ordained and inducted. They are great words for a church that's welcoming a new pastor. Not that new, I know. And they seem to me to be great words for a church that's welcoming a long-standing member into a new role. And indeed, they are great words for all of us who need our vision recharged. I have a confession. I like going to the pictures. I don't know whether anybody else likes the cinema. I can watch a film on the television, but it's not the same. If you're in the cinema, the lights go out, there's nothing else to focus on. All you can hear, all you can see, all your attention is on that one film. Now, when I was younger, and if I confess actually this is still a little bit true, this had a big impact on me. Because I'd come out of the cinema, having sat through the film, thinking that I was whoever the hero had been. If it was a spy film, I'd come out going, name's Bond, James Bond. I'll have my ginger beer shaken, not stirred. And if it was a western, I'd be a gunslinger, the fastest draw in all the territory. I'd tell people that they had to round up the posse, we'd catch up with the rustlers before they got to the river. You could get away with this when you were younger. Now I know I have to fight these urges, otherwise I'd come out of the thriller going, I'm going to make a run for that building, you cover me while I... Still trying to figure out what that means, but they say it in every film I see. Now this might just be a male thing, but I suspect from the laughter on my right that it may be true of all of us in different ways. You see, when we pay real attention to something, it rubs off on us. It makes us want to be that. It moves us in that direction. We love to imitate the things we spend time with. You watch Bake Off or Master Chef and you think, I'll have a go at that. You watch the Antiques Roadshow and you think, I wonder about those things in the attic. So anyway, Paul is writing to the Philippians. It's a thank you note, and because it's Paul, it's a long thank you note. He's got a few things to say, because he's not sure when he's going to get another chance to say them, because he's in prison, he's probably in Rome. If he's not, he's on his way there, and there's every possibility that he's going to be executed, killed. Basically, he's staring death in the face. So he is choosing his words carefully, because these might be the last things he ever says to his friends in Philippi. He's got this personal crisis going on, and so these words are filled with passion and with depth, and because of that, they bounce down the centuries, and they feel like they're written just for us, don't they? Because this is the word of God, and it speaks fresh to every generation. Now, Paul knows that we grow to be like the things we focus on. You give your attention to something, it affects you. And so, knowing that he longs the church in Philippi to be like Jesus, he tells them, put your focus on him. And he tells them about Jesus in the expectation that this will help them to grow into Jesus. Not just to know him, to know about him, but to grow into him, to grow to be like him. And this is why we encourage people to read the scriptures, to read the Gospels, to really pay attention to them, to spend time with Jesus in prayer, because when you're giving attention to something and to someone, you grow to be like them. And so in verse 3, Paul says, do nothing from selfish ambition. And Judith probably doesn't need reminding, but most pastors do. We need to ask ourselves, whose kingdom do I think I'm building? Is it my ambition that's driving the agenda? Now, poor Judith has heard me say this many times, but I'll say it again to her as I do to all the students. Judith, you are wonderful, you are lovely, you are called, you are a gifted person. God has asked you to exercise this ministry, but remember, however great you are, it's not about you. There is a Redeemer, but it's not you. There is a purpose to your calling, but it's not you. Everything has to be about Jesus. And the second part of that verse is important too. You see, ministers, we make a fuss of them. We have occasions like this to celebrate their ministry. And they can easily go, well, I know my Bible better than the others. That's not always true, but they can think that to themselves. They can think, I've studied harder. I'm the one that's called to this. Surely this means in some ways I'm better than the rest. No. No, no, no. Put that apron on. Be humble, says Paul. Regard others as better than yourself, says the apostle. Some of my students think it's hard to be humble. When you're as great as they are, it's tough. You catch yourself thinking, you know, I really managed to be humble today. I'm getting really great at being humble. I wish the others were as good at it as I am. Paul says, don't look to your own interests, but to the interests of others. Now, this is a wonderful church, so I'm sure there are never disagreements in church meeting. And I don't know what your disagreements are about. Judith told me one or two things over the years, but I've carefully forgotten all of that. But when I was a pastor, occasionally we'd have a meeting, we'd have a church meeting where the subject of music came up. And there were some people there who liked the newer songs, and there were some who liked the old hymns. And my job was to remind them what Paul says. Don't just think about what you like. Don't think about your own interests. Think about the interests of others. Think about what others like. Not a very different perspective on the conversation. So then on a Sunday I'd say, we're going to sing such and such a song. I don't expect you all to like it, but I expect you all to sing it. You may not love the song, but I want you to sing it loud because you love the other people who do love the song. You see how that works? Well, it's what we're called to be. Not to say, this is what I want and I'm going to argue for it, but look to the interests of others. Judith, look to the interests of others. And when you have disagreements in the church, remind everyone that their task is to look to the interests of others. To the interests of those that you disagree with. You see, it says, well, Jesus had real status. Now, you may think you've got status. You may think, I'm a minister. I'm a deacon. You could be a duke for all I know. But you can't compete with Jesus, who had the status of God. But he didn't insist on that, so don't insist on yours. He didn't clutch it or exploit it. He let it go, says Paul, so that he could be a slave. He humbled himself to the point of death. So when we stand up and try to get our way, we don't say, well, I'm speaking as such and such, and name our qualification. If we want to be heard in church, we speak as a servant and not with any other status. Jesus humbled himself to the point where those he loved, those he served, condemned him to death, nailed him to a lump of wood, and left him there to asphyxiate. I don't know whether you remember the story of Adam and Eve right at the beginning of the Bible. They were told not to eat the fruit of a particular tree, but an enemy encourages them to eat it and says, if you do that, you will be like God. And the human thinks, be like God, I'll have some of that. Adam and Eve try to grasp equality with God, and the result is that things fall apart. That's the human problem. We're never satisfied with who we are. We always want to be someone else. It's a constant temptation for us all. Lots of ministers want to be the minister up the road where things seem to be going. Don't put your focus there. Don't live in that Adam and Eve kind of way when you're grasping at things. Give your attention to Jesus and live in his way. Jesus does the opposite of Adam and Eve. He already had equality with God, yet he chose to abandon it in order to serve us. Indeed, because he was God, and God is self-giving love, he's able to do this. And he died on the cross, and on the cross he took all the rubbish of our lives. All those things we've done, all those things we've thought about ourselves, all those things that make us feel worthless and useless and lost, all the stuff that stops us feeling we can be friends with people, all the stuff that stops us feeling we can talk to God. You know that stuff? He's taken it all. All that rubbish, he's dealt with it so we don't have to. He's checked it and it deep into space. He's sorted it out so we don't have to. And this man who did all that for us is our example and our role model. We are not him, but we are called to follow him. We sang about it, didn't we? These are the motives that drive our service. And Judith, this is your model. This is the inspiration for your ministry. Inspired by God's Spirit, this is who you are called to follow. And because Jesus did all this, God exalted him and made him Lord of all the cosmos, we're told. So, if you ever wonder what the most powerful thing is in all the universe, it's not a bomb. It's not a check for an eye-watering amount of money. It's not a trip into space in your private rocket. The thing that is most powerful in all the universe is self-giving love. Humble service. The things that characterize Jesus, who is Lord of the cosmos, those are the most powerful thing. Practice those, and your power may be hidden, but it will be real. A few words of advice, if I may. Is that all right? First is, Judith, there will be pressure on you to serve the church, and quite right that there should be. But first, maintain your own walk with Jesus. Countless pastors lose their way because they give their time to the flock and don't have enough for the shepherd. Always remember that you're an under-shepherd. You have a boss, and he has more authority than the college, more authority than the association, forgive me, Colin, more even than the church meeting. It is, of course, King Jesus who is your boss, and you need to spend time with him. The only way to retain this vision is to seek his presence constantly. Keep this picture in Philippians 2 before you. And the next thing, after that, is to watch out for those you pastor in your praying for them, in your preaching, in your teaching, in your example. Set Jesus before them. They want you to tell them about Jesus and to hold his example before them. They want to see him in you and in your ministry. So help them to keep following just as you are following. Encourage them to read about Jesus, seek his Spirit, and they too will grow to be like him. And then there are the ones who are not following yet. And part of your task is to work with the church to say to those outside the walls, join us in following Jesus, or follow Jesus outside the walls. Don't join us, because the kingdom is what matters even more than the church. So, be a disciple, look after the other disciples, help make more disciples. You're brilliant, and today is your day. But always remember, it's Adam and Eve that grasp, Jesus who lets go. Adam and Eve who seek for themselves, Jesus who seeks for others. Adam and Eve live as most people choose to live, but your calling, like that of Jesus, is to live for others. Seek the Spirit, give Jesus your full attention, and you, Judith, will fulfill all your potential and be a wonderful pastor. And these lovely people at Cows will support you in that, and as you serve them, they will join you